Hi, this is my first video and it's on viruses. With all the talk in the media about the coronavirus, I thought this would be a good topic to start off with. This actually was created a couple of weeks ago and the number of cases since then has actually increased. So within the video, I think we had about 20,000 cases and now the number of cases has gone up to close to 80,000. So it's an evolving situation. This is intended for the general public, and I also am talking a little bit about what a virus particle is and how that's different than bacteria and say a human cell. And this is going to be the first of a series of videos that I wanted to create, which are going to include some basics about DNA, cells, and organs, and then the different systems in the human body. And then from there, I wanted to go on and talk about some common medical illnesses such as diabetes and hypertension. And hopefully this will be useful to you. Basically, this is a simple explanation, but viruses come in different shapes and sizes. In this picture here, there's a depiction of hepatitis B, HIV, Ebola virus, for example. So what you see here on the outside is basically a protein coat with additional proteins that are projecting off of it, and inside the virus is a DNA or RNA strand. Now, a virus is actually not a cell. It infects a cell and uses the cell's quote-unquote machinery to replicate itself. So once inside the cell, it'll produce many copies of itself as far as the DNA or RNA as well as its proteins, and then it reassembles, and as it's exiting the cell, this causes a cell to lyse and die. So I have another diagram here which also just goes over what I explained. So here's a virus particle which is much smaller than the cell. It usually attaches to a receptor and is able to gain entry into the cell, and then it disassembles and uses the cell's machinery to replicate all its protein and DNA or RNA. Then this reassembles and it will exit the cell, causing it to lyse or burst open, and then the cell dies. Now, the virus then can go on to affect other cells in the body. In the case of a cold virus or the coronavirus, for example, some of the particles will be released when the person sneezes or coughs into airborne droplets. Now, a virus can be specific to a species and infect humans, animals, or plants, while some can infect more than one species. In the case of coronavirus, it can be transmitted from human to human. Now, some viruses can cause a very severe illness while some are mild. An example of a severe illness is the Ebola virus, which has a high mortality and fatality rate. Whereas the common cold, such as an adenovirus, is usually mild and may cause symptoms for a week or two. And in the case of coronavirus, this can also be a mild form of cold. However, the current coronavirus that's in the news is a more virulent strain. And because we don't know enough about it, there's concern about how contagious it may be and how widespread it might become. So another virus that is well known is influenza. It's widespread and affects people, millions of people worldwide every year. And within the US, it may cause anywhere from 10 to 20,000 deaths a year, and in some years when it's been more severe, up to 30,000 people have died. And its mortality rate is about 0.5%. The coronavirus has affected a much smaller population so far. Now, on my slide, I have 17,000 people that have been infected in China. And this slide was just created yesterday. Today, it's over 20,000 now, and also over 400 deaths. So this is evolving information, and we don't know exactly how severe it's going to be. But based on this data, it's probably has a mortality of 2 to 3%. From early estimates, it seems to be milder than SARS and MERS, but again, as information is evolving. We'll see how this goes. So here's another drawing of a virus. Inside there's RNA or DNA, there's a protein capsule, and then these proteins that project off of it. So how are viruses different from bacteria? Bacteria are actually simple cells that can grow and replicate on their own. It does not infect a cell like a virus, but it can, for example, use a host's nutrients and can release toxins that cause disease. In the top picture, you have a rod-shaped organism, which is a bacteria. Usually they're single-celled, but they can come in multiple, like as a chain. And below that is an image of a bacteria, which is called a prokaryotic cell, meaning that it's an earlier cell type, so it's simpler than humans or animals or plants. It has a cell wall or cell membrane, and then the cytoplasm, and then the RNA, DNA inside, as well as some other components. Now, a eukaryotic cell, which is found in animals, plants, and humans, it's much more complex. It has a cell membrane or cell wall in plants. And then inside you have all these what are called organelles. For example, the mitochondria and the nucleus, which houses the DNA. In addition to all the other kind of machinery that's used to copy itself and produce new cells. And this is the machinery that the virus has to use in order to replicate itself. Here's a depiction of the coronavirus symptoms and spread. So it is called 2019 nCoV, and like the cold, it can present with some fever, sore throat, cough, and in addition, people seem to develop some shortness of breath. This can progress to like pneumonia, breathing difficulties, chills, etc. So the person may cough or sneeze, and then you have airborne viruses that can then go on to infect another person. So it was thought that the coronavirus was originally transmitted from animal to human. Now investigations are still being done to look at the transmission, how contagious it is, and how infectious it is, and what the mortality rates are going to be. So as always, you want to wash hands, avoid sick contacts, and maybe crowded areas, and certainly avoiding travel and to China. So the U.S. has actually now 11 cases, and travel from China to the U.S. has currently been suspended. Measures have been taken to isolate and prevent travelers between the countries. So chance of getting coronavirus in the U.S. currently is low, and unless the person had been recently in China, that's what all of the cases are. And due to all the media coverage and how seriously they've taken this, the virus, they're trying to contain this so that so it doesn't become as widespread. And again, this is an evolving situation, so we will see with time how much this progresses. So that's the basics of a virus. So the coronavirus, although not as severe, say as something like Ebola or even MERS or SARS, still has over 20,000 people infected now. And so we'll just keep an eye out and see how this progresses. Hopefully this is useful to you. Okay, well that's the end of my first video, and this is my first time attempting a video, in fact, and hope you liked it. And I wanted to create some more on the different systems of the human body, and then talk about some general medical topics. And again, this is intended for the general public and certainly high school students and maybe even college students who are taking introductory courses. And I have a website, DocTalk101, which has a number of articles on general health topics. And so subscribe and like, and hopefully these will be useful to you.